Progressive, liberal, left-winger. Those are some of the many words used to describe Senator Bernie Sanders as his presidential campaign picks up momentum. But there's one word we haven't heard used as much. It's a word that Sanders uses to describe himself.
You've described yourself as a small d Democrat. So will you tell us, Americans, what a small d Democrat means?
Well, a democratic socialist, I think.
Right, democratic socialist.
Socialist, that is a term that doesn't sit well with most Americans. Pew finding in 2011 that just 31%, that's less than a third of those surveyed, have a positive view of the term socialism. 60% have a negative view, and it's that negative view of socialism that Sanders has been trying for years to disprove, going back to his days as Burlington, Vermont's mayor.
We believe in democracy. I mean, the problem with the word socialism is that very often it's been equated with what happens in the Soviet Union, which is authoritarianism and totalitarianism. I believe very strongly in the right of dissent, and I think people with my ideas fight for those things very strongly.
But Missouri Senator Claire McCaskill, who's already endorsed Hillary Clinton, says the media hasn't questioned Sanders enough about his socialist views.
I think the media is giving Bernie a pass right now. I very rarely read in any coverage of Bernie that he's a socialist. I think everybody wants a fight, and I think they are not really giving the same scrutiny to Bernie Sanders that they're giving to certainly Hillary Clinton and the other candidates.
So is Claire McCaskill right? Is the media giving Bernie Sanders a pass? And could Americans really vote for a socialist? Well, let's ask our panel. I love the old Phil Donahue interview there.
Yeah,
34 years ago. Yeah, that's a fun one to look at. But okay, so, I mean, you look at those poll numbers. 2-to-1 people have a negative view of the term socialism. There's Claire McCaskill, who's, sort of a Hillary surrogate, clearly sees an opening there to kind of marginalize Bernie Sanders. Is socialism, the connection that Bernie Sanders has to it, does that just automatically kill him as a national candidate?
Well, it's a convenient code. You know, nobody's using it in the strict political theory definition, but it's very clear that Bernie Sanders is someone who wants to confer more power on the government to run ever more aspects of our transactions, of our lives. For Americans, historically, that's been anathema, although it is perhaps becoming less so. And obviously, for Hillary Clinton's supporters, they're pulling this word out because they know that it's going to be toxic to moderate Democrats.
Have used it to great effect.
Well, right. I mean, and that's the question. The Republicans, how many conservatives on talk radio or blogs or whatever are always calling Democrats socialists, collectivists, communists?
I mean, that's part
and now
of why
you've got an actual socialist running for the Democratic nomination.
It's part of why the word has less power, because it has been used so much. But there's also a shift that's happening that is pointed out in that same article, which is that younger Americans who were born post-Cold War, or at least came of age post-Cold War, they don't have the same, red fear that older generations had.
We can put those numbers up, actually, Krystal. I don't mean to interrupt you, but let's put these up so you can see. This is people age 18 to 29, and that is striking. Look at this.
They view socialism more positively than capitalism.
That's an amazing disconnect.
Yeah, and I think because they think of it more in terms of the Bernie Sanders model, right? Looking at, yes, I believe that we should support people. I believe that we should have a social safety net. If you look at most of the positions that Bernie Sanders advocates for, they're actually quite popular, including expanding Social Security, which is popular across a broad range of ages. So I think most folks are not thinking so much about the label, but they're looking at the positions. And look, Bernie Sanders has a ceiling. He's not going to be the Democratic nominee. He's not going to be ultimately a national candidate. But the thing that people are responding to is that he is crystal clear about where he stands. He's been in the same place his whole career, and that authenticity is a very rare commodity in politics. I mean, if you want to compare him to Donald Trump, there is nothing comparable in Donald Trump in terms of that sort of genuine authenticity.
Well, I wonder
and it's
too.
a big contrast with Hillary Clinton, who is perceived.
That is absolutely right.
I've heard the argument made too that actually, I mean, you talk about all the strengths Hillary Clinton has as this is the biggest front runner Democrats have ever seen, either party's ever seen. But that is actually a contrast. If there's one candidate who that contrast works for, it's Bernie Sanders, because she represents so much of the entrenched power power, all the political class lining up for that. It sort of helps define him more to run against that. But I wonder, too, if you talk about that generational difference on attitudes towards socialism, how much of that has to do with an older generation that remembers, that lived through the Soviet Union, Soviet communism, and all that, a younger generation to whom that's not part of their life. It's a point that Bernie Sanders tries to make when he's asked about this. We have a clip. This is when he was on Seth Meyers' show recently. When he talks about socialism as a governing philosophy, he talks about Scandinavia. This is what he has to say.
You have countries like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, other European countries which have had social democratic governments and labor governments. And the result of that is, in those countries, health care is a right of all people. I don't see that as a great problem. At a time when so many of our young people can't afford to go to college, tuition is free in many of those countries. Excellent. They have excellent child care, strong retirement benefits. They're often very strongly pro-environment, taking on climate change. So I think when people understand that in those countries, governments are working for the middle class rather than the billionaire class, I think we can get our message across.
So there you go, Elahe. Listen to all those millennials applauding in the background, the 73-year-old candidate.
Yeah, take them to all of the spots where all the millennials congregate, talk about free tuition for sure. Yeah, I mean, the idea that socialism as this label is going to bring him down in a Democratic primary. I mean, if you look in the Iowa polls, he is gaining on Hillary Clinton right now. And he could be a foil in that state. If she does not win Iowa, that will not be good. But the issues he's articulating, the argument that he makes is that these are positions that he's holding that a lot of people, both Democrat and Republican, also hold. And so whether or not he becomes the candidate, the nominee, it is another question. Is he going to be pushing Clinton into these positions? And that doesn't really maybe bode well for her in a general as well.
He already has pushed her, I think.
On gun control, she's talking more and more about that.
Well, I am really excited to see. I mean, we talk about these Republican debates, but I am really excited to see.
That's going to be fun.
Hillary Clinton versus Bernie Sanders. I know there's 3 other candidates up there, and I kind of wish we could just have that one-on-one debate of Hillary. You know, she's probably happy the other 3 are up there.
It may actually feel much like a one-on-one debate because he is incredibly outspoken. He's very smart. He knows what he's talking about. He has that certainty, and he's willing to say exactly what he thinks. So yes, it will be fun to watch. I mean, one thing that I've been thinking about, watching how well that Bernie Sanders, and by the way, you get a lot of credit for predicting how well he would do unexpectedly. You were one of the first people who looked
I'm glad you read your notes for this.
Looked at the reality and said this guy's going to do better than people think, and you were absolutely right about that. I mean, I look at this and I think, you know, imagine if Elizabeth Warren had gotten in this race.
Yeah. I wonder if Elizabeth Warren thinks that
she would be in a much different position. She would have a much broader range of support and really could have given Hillary a run for her money.
And meanwhile, Martin O'Malley's sitting back there in Baltimore saying, why isn't it me?
Why
This is supposed to be me. All those years of planning. Anyway.